beyond your blogging and all the family stuff that you do and the cooking and the foodie mama and all that good stuff, you're also an entrepreneur and you own your own company called iFactor. Can you tell us a little bit about the company and when you founded it and maybe what your services are?
Sure. I started iFactor right after my first son was born. I decided I didn't want to go back to an agency or a corporate world. I wanted to have some flexibility and I wanted to consult. So when my son was about 3 months old, my husband took a 1-month leave of absence from his job so I could get my business off the ground. So I've been in business for almost 7 years now, but I've been in the marketing industry for lots more than that. 18 years, maybe more than that. I'm bad at math. But it's a company that I started that really worked mostly on brand strategy and consumer insights. So I say that I'm the voice of your consumer. And I think so many times we approach marketing and business very tactically instead of strategically. We don't try to think about how are people going to digest what we're communicating and how are they going to digest it and how are they going to spit it back out in terms of word of mouth. So I really like to do the homework and due diligence it takes to get into consumers' minds to help build your brand platform and help you define what your strategies and tactics should be from there.
And what kind of clients do you work with?
Generally, I work with 3 kinds of clients. I either work with small businesses that don't have their own marketing department, or I will work with ad agencies and PR firms, especially doing consumer research because I'm the objective third party who's brought in to do that research. Or I work with large companies in a specific department, mostly as a supplemental extra hand or second opinion when they're working on something very project related. And those are usually more transactional clients than relationship long-term clients.
And there's no getting away from it. Social media, digital marketing are all, at the root of a lot of these marketing programs and initiatives that are being rolled out now. I mean, if you're in B2B, B2C, if you're not doing some sort of social media, I think you're missing the boat. Do you agree with that? Do you see social media, where do you see social media playing into, these marketing campaigns and driving brand awareness and what have you seen happening over the last, 6 months to a year and where do you see it going?
Well, I think it's only growing. And I think the way I see it maybe is different than how people who build themselves as social media mavens and gurus build themselves or think about it. But I think that social media is still media. And it needs to be integrated into how we communicate, whether you're buying billboard space or ad space on a website or in a magazine, or you're communicating at a trade show, whatever that is. I don't think social media is anything new. I'm sure that a lot of these kinds of discussions were going on when people moved from radio to television. Radio and television aren't going away. And so I think the biggest mistake is people start thinking traditional media is going away. Maybe they're not growing, but they're not going away. I think consumers just view our entertainment differently. We get information differently, and social media helps us do that. What makes me crazy is when I see companies with a traditional marketing plan and a social media marketing plan, and they are divergent instead of complementing each other. And I think your voice and your brand have to be integrated. And if you are writing a press release or you're doing an interview, you have to have the same sound bites and key messages as whatever you're putting on your Facebook page and whatever messages you're tweeting or writing on your blog. And if those aren't integrated, then you're really sending diluted messages of your brand. And that makes me crazy. I do think as people just dive in and experience more, we will become more savvy. We're all still learning about what the opportunity is. I think that we might hit a spot where things do plateau a bit. People are starting to worry more about their privacy. They're starting to worry more about representing themselves personally versus their business. And that whole kind of muddying of personal brand versus corporate brand is happening. It happened before. You never knew what someone was going to say about their job at a backyard barbecue, but that's not blasted to thousands of followers. So the nuances are obviously different. So I think people as more people jump in, people will also become more guarded. And I think that's why companies need to have a social media strategy. You need to have a plan that plays into your regular marketing strategy.
And, you're obviously based here in the Southeast or work out of the Southeast here. In other markets, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and up in Boston, there's a lot of social media. What can you say about the social media scene here, or the digital marketing scene here? I mean, there's a lot of activities happening, and you're involved in a lot of them in terms of your speaking and the education that you're giving to people here. What can you say, or how can you sum up kind of what the scene is like down here versus the rest of the country based on what you know?
I think that's a great question. I think people have perceptions about the South and what we're doing here, and I think the scene here is on fire. There are so many smart people here, and they're not all techie smart. It's a really great blend of people who are talented writers, people who are funny, people who are techie geeks, people who are very creative. I think it's a really robust and diverse community we have here. And when I talk to friends around the country, they're amazed that we have 300 people show up for a tweet up. And they're amazed at the ethnic diversity that we see in our social media community. And what's funny is that I don't necessarily see that same diversity in my everyday life, but I see it as it relates to social media here. And I think we have a lot of great national players here who have a lot of great brand recognition, and they're smart people who still have a different sense of values, and they want to maybe take things slowly, do things right. I don't know what drives them to stay here and not go where there perhaps are greener pastures, but honestly I think that this is where things are growing in terms of social media and in terms of our geography. We have Research Triangle Park, we have great universities here. It's an area that has so many talented people. I'm glad to see that the social media scene is what it is.
And lastly, you, like I said, you do present and you do speaking, and what are some of the reoccurring questions that people are asking you? Obviously they're looking to you for your expertise in social media and marketing, and what are the things that you're hearing over and over again? What seems to be the common thread or the questions that are coming up at some of these events?
One of the biggest questions I hear is who should own social media, and I talked about this last year at Social Media Business Forum, and it keeps coming up, worded in different ways, but there seems to be turf war over who is going to own and run social media, and a lot of people think it should belong in the IT department because they view social media as tools and gadgets and websites, and other people think it belongs in the PR department because it's about your voice and having your voice heard. I personally think it belongs in the marketing department. I think social media is part of how you communicate your brand. And your brand permeates throughout your organization, whether it's the person answering the phone or behind a desk or a brochure or a customer experience. It's not just your logo. So I think that marketing needs to really own and come up with the strategy and how to best leverage social media.